We're back and doing my favorite thing to do, which is looking at Magic cards. Specifically, we're going to be looking at least 10 common Magic the Gathering cards, and I'm going to tell you, are they any good for the Pauper format? Let's see what we get. What is our first card? Scryfall has been very slow today, generally, but we'll see what we got here. Recalibrate is, which is what Scryfall should be doing. Recalibrate is 1 and a blue for an instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. If you've discarded a card this turn, draw a card. From Modern Horizons 2. Interesting. Was it yesterday or maybe 2 days ago where we looked at the Kamigawa card that bounces a creature for 2 mana? And I was pretty harsh on that. Double the mana of Unsummon. What are you doing? Why wouldn't you just play Unsummon or Bounce Off or, all the variants of those things? And I feel pretty similarly about this. But if you're in a discard heavy deck, which is possible, I suppose, some kind of Is It deck that's playing sneaky snackers and discarding cards that way, yeah, I guess you can get a little bit of value on this. But I don't know, the hoop to jump through to draw the card, I don't know if it's really worth it. You have to have already discarded the card that turn. So, you've had to use some kind of loot effect, or, if you're in red, again, like just a straight up discard effect. Black can do some discarding stuff. I don't love it. I think it's not consistent enough. And again, at the end of the day, what do you really get? You get one bounced creature and a drawn card. And I think this is gonna rot in your hand most of the time. I mean, it's still playable all the time because it's an unsummon. Unsummons are playable, but just play unsummon. Just play bounce off. Play the good ones, right? I'm going to give this a relatively bad score, I think. Let's go for a 2. It's still removal, but it's pretty bad removal. Agent of Horizons is 2 and a green for a 3/2 human rogue, and for 2 and a blue, this creature can't be blocked this turn from Theros. So you're going to mostly be playing this in some kind of Simic deck or Simic flavored deck. But I don't think you really need to play this one either. 3 mana for a 3/2 is not great, especially not great in green. Green should be able to do better than this. But you are getting the unblockability, so a 3 power unblockable guy is kind of okay. But he's only unblockable if you pay another 3 mana into him, and you have to pay it in blue, so if you've only picked up your forest that game so far, yeah, you can cast this guy, but you can't use his effect. And if you can't use his effect, he's pretty useless. And I still think he's pretty useless even with his effect. I think I'm going to give this one a 2 as well. Nah, I can give it less than a 2. I can do worse. Let's go for like a 1.8. It's not a card I will be playing. What do we have? Oh, Nantuko Disciple, specifically the 8th edition printing that has the old white border on it. But I was just holding a copy of this Odyssey card in my hand, so I had a whole 12 cents in my hand. Can you believe it? Nantuko Disciple is 3 and a green for a 2/2 insect druid. You can pay a green, tap it, and target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Pretty normal. It's kind of like an angelic page, but worse and better. Angelic page only gives +1/+1, but it also flies, and it's an angel, and those things are useful. This is a druid. Druids are potentially useful. You can do some stuff with druids, and it's an insect. Insect does a little bit as well, but neither of them are crazy creature types that are really going to matter. Giving somebody +2/+2 at instant speed isn't bad. But I think we have just cards that do better than this. Like, what deck are you putting this in? And to only give +2/+2 and no sort of evasion, we get a lot of things that will give creatures, a smaller bump maybe, +1/+0, but it'll give it haste, or it'll give it trample, or it'll give it menace or something. And those, I think, are a little bit more useful than something that just gives you extra stats and not really anything to do with them. So as much as I love the art, great job, Justin, sweet. But I don't particularly like this card all that much. I think it's better than the ones we've seen so far, but not by much. It is 4 mana to cast it in the first place, and you have to keep paying mana to keep getting its effect. I'll give it like a 2.3. That still seems high, but 2.3 is what we say. Snapback is we had Snap at the end of the last episode, and it was so good. Snapback can't possibly be better than Snap, right? Snapback is 1 and a blue. So far, it's a Snap. It's an instant. You may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost and return target creature to its owner's hand. You know what? That's actually really interesting. Really interesting from Time Spiral, which makes a whole lot of sense. A set that was based on, I wouldn't say inside jokes exactly, but references to Magic's past. So this is absolutely going for Snap. And the idea of Snap, if you didn't watch yesterday's episode, and if you didn't, go back and watch that one. It was pretty good. Snap can essentially be free. You pay the mana, you bounce the creature, and then you get to untap 2 lands. So it kind of is free. Sometimes it can even net you mana if you are using lands that are able to, generate more mana than 1 a turn, or 1 per tap. I mean, so that can be really useful. That's why Snap is a big all-star in Pauper. Snapback doesn't really get played, even though it can also be free. And I think that's their way of trying to reference it and doing a quote-unquote fixed version of Snap. That, all right, well, if you exile a blue card in the way that, what is it, Force of Will does, that's another way of getting a free card. Free spells are still free spells. They're really powerful and tough to deny. And in some ways, you kind of get the same thing, right? You played a Snap for free. You didn't spend any mana on it, or you have the exact same mana that you had before after you play this. And that's cool, but you have 4 copies of Snap in your deck already if you're playing an effect like this. And I don't necessarily think you need copies 5 through 8 of Snap. So Snapback just kind of flounders a little bit. It's a good card. Can't deny that it's a good card. It can be very useful. But just where do you use it? I don't really know. Let's give this thing a 4.5 because it is a solid card. Uvenwald Captive is 1 and a green for a 1/2 werewolf horror. It's got Defender. You can tap it to add a green or different effect. You can pay 5 green and transform this creature. When you transform it, it becomes Ulvenwald Abomination, which is a 4/6 Eldrazi werewolf, and you can tap it to add 2 colorless mana. That's kind of interesting. You get a little early game play of the mana dork. It's fine. 1/2 taps for a green. Defender kind of sucks, but you're rarely going to be attacking with this guy anyway because you're going to be tapping him for mana. So I don't really care too much. And then later in the game, you can pay 7, which is a ridiculous amount of mana to pay, but you end up getting the 4/6, which is not great stats if you've already paid 9 mana into this guy. Although I guess he's netted you mana over time. And important, I suppose, you can tap him to add the color or add the green and then use that for the cost. So in some ways, it only kind of costs 6, even though the creature would come back tapped. Once you transform it. But you have a 4/6, and now it's Soul Ring? It's an Ancient Tomb. It's a Sisay's Ring. You have ways. I was thinking of another one too. A Hedron Archive. There you go. Worn Power Stone. I could go on and on. But that's okay too. Later in the game, though, if you've already been able to pay 7 mana to transform this guy, how much more mana do you really need, right? I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. This is a format that has Land of War Elves in it, so that's just better ramp than what you're going to get from the guy on the front. And the guy on the front's the one that you're going to see most of the time because it's kind of Christmas land to get to the back. Let's go for. I'll give it like a 2.5. You know, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, can we do better? Can we do better? Well, we got Rebecca Gayheart, so already doing better. Regenerate. It's 1 and a green for an instant. You regenerate target creature. Goes in the pile of cards that are just the keyword. You know, vigilance. Gives a creature vigilance. Regenerate. Interesting. What do we think about regenerate these days? It's a weird ability. We've stopped using it. I know I talked about it on an episode a long time ago. But let's read it again. The next time that creature would be destroyed this turn, instead you tap it, remove it from combat, and heal all damage on it. So it's a way of getting past destroy effects. It's a way of stopping combat damage for a turn. You still get to do the damage. You know, once you get removed from combat, but only once the damage has been done. So it turns a trade into a chump. That's kind of cool. It can be useful for attacking or blocking. That's fine too. 2 mana to get this at instant speed. It's okay. I mean, we've also seen this card, I think it's called Regeneration, as an aura. And then it only costs, like, once you cast the aura, it only costs you 1 mana to regenerate the creature. And I think that might be better, although this is a little less interactable by the opponent, having to be instant speed. I don't know on this one. You know, regenerate's an interesting ability, but I think there's so much protection in green that is a single mana that it makes it hard to think about 2 mana green cards that are protection spells. You know, obviously not available in Pauper, but Heroic Intervention is 2 mana. I think Heroic Intervention's a little bit better than Regenerate. Yeah, I don't know. I don't particularly like Regenerate. Let's I feel bad giving a Rebecca Gay art card anything too terrible, but this is not an amazing card. It's a very simple and straightforward card, but I'm gonna give this a 2.5. I think that might be too high, but 2.5 is where I'm going. Let's keep on moving along and see what our next card is. It is, pretty good. It is Lagona Band Trailblazer. For a single white mana, you get a 0/4 Centaur Scout with Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. This is a staple, a incredibly useful piece, a pillar of the mono white heroic deck. And mono white heroic is a solid deck. I generally prefer going to green to do Bogles, but it's hard to deny that mono white heroic is really fast. It gets to play planes, just a bunch of planes, so it has a lot of untapped mana. It has a lot of cheap creatures. You don't have to worry about fixing it all. It just goes. It is pretty mindless magic, but it is pretty effective magic. And this guy's a big reason why. 0/4 on turn 1, you can basically block anything that mono red throws at you, or honestly what most decks are able to throw at you on turn 1+. And then you just start targeting him with things, auras and instants and whatever, and those auras and instants are probably growing him as well, but now he's growing himself, and he just kind of gets out of control. He started as a really great blocker, and now he becomes both an incredible attacker and the best blocker you could maybe ask for. It's This card's good. This card is just plain good. And I think we're going to give it a pretty just plain good score. I'm going to go like I'm going to go a 7.8, I think. If we hadn't seen Snap already this week, I would say this is probably the best card we're going to see this entire week. This is a great card. If you're playing Mono White Heroic, you're absolutely getting 4 copies of this one. Okay, what is next? Flood of Recollection is blue and a blue for a sorcery that says return target instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand, and then you exile Flood of Recollection. The exile, that's the tough part. You know, because what you want is to be able to use your well, I was going to say use your Archaeomancer, but your Archaeomancer is doing that on its own. But people are playing Archaeomancer. You know, you can do interesting loops with Archaeomancer where you use Ephemerate and you're bouncing the Archaeomancer, or you're flickering the Archaeomancer and you're grabbing back another thing, and then on the rebound next turn for Ephemerate, the Ephemerate goes to the graveyard, and then once that guy bounces back, then he can take the Ephemerate back out of the graveyard and put it in your hand, and how you just keep looping stuff. That's really good. This is a one-time deal because it then exiles the card. It's cheap though. It is very cheap. It costs as much as a counterspell does, and it can go back and get your counterspell, and that's all right too. It's in some ways copy 5 through 8 of your best instant in blue, and maybe even outside of blue. But the 2 blue makes it pretty hard to put in other decks. And that's not bad. It's not bad having better access to your best cards. But if you draw this without already having the best cards, either in your hand or in your graveyard, this thing becomes a lot less useful. Whereas Archaeomancer, at the very least, it still attacks and blocks and does stuff, being that it's a creature. And this doesn't really do anything. It's not bad, but it's not going to get an amazing score. I'll give this a 3.6. 3.6. Up next, hey, another Rebecca art. We're very lucky today. Noble Steeds is 2 and a white for an enchantment. You can pay 1 and a white, and target creature gains first strike until the end of turn. That's it. So you're paying 3 mana for nothing. It just goes on the table. But then you can pay another 2 mana anytime, instant speed, and give a bunch of creatures first strike. That each and every turn. That makes it kind of tough for opponents' blocks. That's kind of cool, but it is a big investment, and it's a continual investment, and those are tough to justify. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I didn't know Rebecca did both arts of this. Alliances had multiple arts for their commons, but I knew she did this one. I didn't remember that one was her too. Interesting. Yeah, it's not too good of a card, I guess, but it's interesting, and it's kind of cool just to be able to threaten first strike whenever you need to. I don't hate it for that. Let's go for something like a 2.7, maybe. Sometimes I feel like I just say numbers to be different than the other numbers that I've said. You don't really want to say 2.5 back to back to back, but yeah, I think 2.7 makes sense on this one. Oh, Mana Leak. Okay. Mana Leak is an incredibly good card that I don't think really sees much Pauper play, and it's because we just have so many other good counterspells to play with. Let's read it first. Mana Leak is 1 and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. It's tough. It's tough to pay an extra 3 on spells. Either your opponent does it, and then they probably don't have any mana to do anything else that turn, or they can't pay it, because that's a lot of mana to ask them to pay when they've already played a spell. And if you're playing Magic, you're trying to play things really efficiently with your mana, and you can stop a whole bunch of spells with Mana Leak, and it's a little easier to cast than Counterspell. Most of the decks that play Counterspell, though, or want to play Counterspell, can just play Counterspell. And sometimes even Counterspell feels like it's a little slow. And you'll want to play things like Force Spike or Spell Pierce or Envelop or Abjure. There are a lot of single blue Dispel. That's another one. There's a lot of good, more specific counter magic, but it's also cheaper. And I think a lot of people go with those. Annul, that's another one as well. A good sideboard piece when you play against artifact or enchantment decks. And I think generally you want to be able to pull those cards rather than having the more generally useful card like Mana Leak. But it's still an incredibly good card, an incredibly useful card. And I think if you need to play more 2-mana counter spells, and you've already put 4 counter spells in your deck, I would be hard pressed to tell you what a better counter spell, a better second counter spell would be than Mana Leak. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of the better ones. This is a good card. I don't think we see it all that much in Pauper, but it would not surprise me at all to see somebody put this in their deck, and I know they would do well with it. It's a tough card to come back from. Let's go with I'm gonna go with a straight 7 on this one. Good card, very good card. I think that was our 10, but let's do a little bonus card just for funsies. Will it be fun? Did we make the same mistake we did with Snap, where we got a great 2-mana spell in blue, and then we went, well, okay, let's do another one. It was garbage. Warlord's Fury is a single red mana for a sorcery. Creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn, and you draw a card. You know what? I don't hate it. I don't. I think it's okay. Now, I have a deck that's like a Boros deck. It uses equipment. It likes creatures having first strike because it plays a lot of the Inventor's Axe or Mirren Bane Splitter or Dueling Rapier. And it's great to have these creatures that have just giant powers. But they are pretty fragile if they don't have first strike. And I do have a couple ways of giving them first strike. Do I think having a whole card dedicated to that is all that useful? I'm not sure that it is. And I'll tell you, the real issue here is that it's sorcery speed. If I could get this as an instant speed, which I think probably would be too good, I might play 2, 3. I'll try 4 copies and see how it works. It draws a card. It's a cantrip effect. Red getting to draw cards, that doesn't happen very often. So that's pretty cool. I don't know. I just kind of like it. I might actually grab a handful of copies just to have them. But I like this card. I like this card a decent bit, and I'm going to give it a 5. Just give it a straight 5. I think this is playable in Pauper, even if I don't really see it. But it's not bad. It's not bad. You go in with like a really small go wide strategy, but your creatures get little buffs, and then you just give them all first strike. Man, that's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. All right, folks. Thanks for joining me on this one. We'll see you next time.